Can I set the record straight about something?
Sure.
I said a few weeks ago that Steve is obsessed with the glass menagerie. It's not true.
Does he even like it at all?
I mean, he's seen it, and I don't think he hates it.
Okay.
But I don't know why I said it. And I got a text out of the blue from him. He said, "Am I obsessed with the glass menagerie?" And I was like, "Why?"
All the listeners are coming.
Yes.
Like, "Oh my God, me too."
I was like, "I never said that." And then he played me the clip, and I was like, "I said that. I said that."
Oh wow.
I said it. It's not true.
Sorry, Steve. I mean, let the record show. Strike it from the record. You are just casually interested in the glass menagerie.
I think he thinks it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Fair enough.
Hi, Julia Bentavali.
Hi, Patrick Hines.
All right, fam, in case you're new here, you know what's going on. This is part 2 of our coverage of Still Missing Morgan. Episodes 1 and 2 we covered last week in our first episodes of this coverage. And so we're finishing it up today. We're going to do the second 2 apps.
Yeah, and it's on Hulu.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be better about telling everyone where they can find this.
Yeah, and I just want to remind you, if you'd like more Jillian and me, if you like Drag Bingo, if you like ad-free episodes, if you like bonus episodes, if you want to hear our coverage of the Jinx Part 2, which is we just started.
It is here. It is happening.
I mean, it's so crazy. Please join us over on the Patreon. 450 full ad-free bonus apps.
Yeah.
You know, it's where the party is.
Do it for the Drag Bingo alone,
Do
honestly.
it for the drag. Well, and also for the Jinx, too.
Okay, yeah.
I will say for that.
Yeah, but Schwa is at Drag Bingo.
That's true.
She rules.
The case of Juanita Wofford is now over. Charles Vines admitted before a judge he is guilty.
He is not just a murderer, he's a rapist. That's been proven.
That was a polygraph.
I know for a fact he had a red truck with a white camper because I used to drive by it.
Charlie Vines had admitted that he had actually done the Morgan Nick abduction.
You were looking at somebody that has some serious issues going on.
We can change that children wouldn't be taken and that predators get jail sentences that don't allow them to get out again and commit these crimes.
All these kids who are out there, they just don't vanish into thin air. They do go somewhere, and someone took our kids.
We are about ready to find out exactly what happened to Jacob Wetterling, and we're about ready to hear from the man who did it.
All right, girl. So we open with Patty Wetterling.
Yes. So she is Jacob Wetterling's mom. And so the last episode ended in 2016.
Yes.
Saying like after 27 years, we finally know what happened to Jacob Wetterling. And we're about to hear from the man who did it, is the quote.
Yeah. So we meet Chris from the FBI, which he is one of the guys who cracked the case. And what is so amazing about that is he got into law enforcement and specifically wanted to be in the FBI because of the Jacob Wetterling case.
Yeah. And because Patty's like, look, people don't just vanish. Something happens to them and we need to find them.
Yes.
And she says,
I don't want a 25th anniversary. And I no offense, Sheriff, but you've had this case for 25 years. Where's the team? Where's our state crime bureau, our BCA, our Tri-County Major Crime Unit, the FBI, all of the people who were here at the beginning? We need a fresh look. Bring them back.
Where are you?
Yep.
What's the update? What are you doing? Can we please get some fresh eyes? And she goes, I do training for law enforcement because of this.
Yep.
I hear how cases are solved. It's always, almost always, by going back to the beginning. We need fresh eyes.
I said it last episode. When they go back 25 years later, they always are like, we interviewed the actual killer in the first week.
Yeah. And this is the amount of power that Patty has.
Yes.
She calls a meeting and the FBI shows up.
Yes.
Because she's fucking Patty.
Yeah, because she spent her life keeping her kid's story in the press. Like the Jacob Wetterling case is one of the most well-known.
Right. So the FBI is like, hey, Patty, we're new here. Because, like, you said jump and we said how high.
Yeah.
So they say, why don't we bring in the CARD team?
Yes.
Patty's like, yes, the CARD team is the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team. And this is where FBI Chris comes in.
And FBI Chris is saying, like, the way CARD works is not glamorous or sexy at all. You get the case files, you shut the fuck up, you sit down, you read every single piece of literature.
It's for the indoor kids.
It's for the indoor kids.
It's like, it's analytical, it's organized, it's looking for patterns, it's details, it's quiet. He goes, it's very quiet and thoughtful.
We don't go out and find anybody new. We're not even looking for new evidence.
No,
it's all there.
It's yes.
Especially like for the Wetterling case, which had like eyes on it from the beginning.
Yeah, but we will learn eventually that the case was basically ruined from the beginning. Like law enforcement bungled this case big time from the very, very beginning.
Yes.
So yes, all the information is there, but like all the information is there, especially in this case, because there are things that they just ignored and let go.
Yeah, so Patty is telling us there's a blogger who'd been telling Jacob's story.
She had incredible detail, really fact-based, really, really good. And she met, through her blog, some of the victims started calling her.
these people are coming forward saying that they were also victimized by this person.
Because around the same time as Jacob's abduction, there were
Yes.
sexual assaults on young boys were happening in nearby towns. So Jared from Cold Spring is a survivor.
Yes.
And a lot of these survivors, like you said, are coming forward. And Jacob's mom is like, this is the same guy. This is all the same guy. All of these cases are connected.
Yes.
And the person's name is Danny Heinrich.
Yeah.
So in 1990, he was a potential suspect in an abduction like 15 miles away from Jacob's abduction.
And remember, Jacob was 1989, so this was the next year.
Right. And we have a lot of information from this case because the boy did an amazing job giving information, and the report was done really well, too. FBI Chris says it's a masterclass in police report writing.
I just want to put a fine point on that. Jacob was kidnapped and was not seen again in 1989. This unnamed kid in Cold Spring was like less than a year later.
Yes.
But he got away. He was rescued somehow. We don't know the story, but he survived and went home and was like able to like tell the cop very detailed things. And it's interesting, like FBI Chris is saying, this was before DNA, but this cop had the foresight to write down every detail. Like the mom tells the cop, my son keeps wiping his mouth on this one corner of his sleeve.
Yeah.
And the cop made note of that, which was really important for like years later when DNA became a thing. They knew there might be DNA from the abductor from where the kid had been wiping his mouth on the sleeve.
Yeah.
And like it's that DNA is how we find Heinrich and connect him to this whole ring.
Yes.
And like without that police officer taking that really detailed note, we might never have been able to get this guy's DNA.
And the boy being brave enough to
Yes,
say all of it
of
and
course.
articulate it in a way. And his mom was there helping. Like it just, when he says a masterclass, like everyone was just at 100 here.
Yeah.
So FBI Chris says,
In the evidence room at Stearns County, Heinrich had about 25 hairs pulled back in 1990 by the original investigators, and they were still in evidence, along with the shoes, along with the plaster cast from the driveway where the abduction occurred.
it's all just there.
Because the shoe print and the tire tracks are connected to the Wetterling case, because that's what was found on the road where Jacob was taken.
Right.
So they're eventually going to connect this Cold Spring unnamed case to Jacob, and with Danny Heinrich being the common thread.
Right.
And that's how they're going to identify the guy.
Because this boy, the survivor who told the story, after he told all these details in July of 2015, because FBI Chris is here now, we ran all these tests and the report came back. The DNA on the sleeve of that survivor is the DNA of this Danny monster.
Now, just remember, they tested this DNA in 2016. The DNA they collected in 1990. And they only knew the DNA would be there because the boy was brave enough to tell the cop and the cop was smart enough to write it down.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And FBI Chris analyzed it and found it.
I wish we knew more about this kid's case, like, because when we learn, and we will learn what happened to Jacob, and it's very violent and it's very awful. I want to know how this kid who was abducted by the same guy managed to escape.
Yeah,
I wish
after
we
the
knew.
fact. Usually when we hear about this might have been like his first attempt
Yes.
of something, you know, the evil person. So it is very interesting. But this totally re-energized the case, right? We have new eyes, we have new people, new attention. Like,
Yeah.
Patty, let's go. I'm
Yes.
here for Patty. So now we're back to Morgan's case. It's May of 2020, and the cops are going over, once again, the day Morgan was abducted. They're trying to get all the information they can. They're calling witnesses again.
Yes, and they're looking for one person in particular, and this one witness in particular. And they tell us, like, suddenly the father of this witness shows up at the police station.
He was actually a little bit irritated and frustrated because he had shared this information before. He immediately tells me that I'm the one with the information that you need, and starts talking to me about an individual that he believes could be responsible for Morgan.
This man thinks he knows the individual who could be responsible for abducting and killing Morgan.
And this guy's name is Billy Jack Lynx. Now, Billy Jack...
The bad guy.
Yeah, the bad guy's name is Billy Jack Lynx. And this was not a person that Detective Brett was looking at. This is a new name for him. So he's like, all right, I have to get all of the information I possibly can about this Billy Jack Lynx guy. So what we learn is 2.5 months after Morgan's abduction, he was arrested for sexual solicitation of a child, and they described it as an attempted abduction.
Yes. And we meet Officer Kevin Johnson. He first met Billy Jack Lynx in 1983. He says he was my first DWI arrest, so I knew about him.
Yeah, this guy's a piece of shit.
He's like a local, weird, gross, drunk old man who like lived in the area.
So here's what happened. It's 2.5 months after Morgan goes missing. This happened at a Sonic, in the parking lot of a Sonic. So there was a young girl there with her brothers and a friend. They're like drinking their soda. They're having some fries.
And by young, we mean like 11 years old.
Yeah. So Billy Jack Lynx pulls up and he like is trying to talk to all these kids. He's very interested in the little girl who's 11. He actually tried to pay the boys to go away and leave them alone, and they didn't. So for whatever reason, he's able to coax the kids like 2 blocks away from Sonic.
Yeah.
He's offering money for them to do whatever he wants them to do. And he offers this little girl money to go home with him.
Like, just think about that. He offers this 11-year-old girl money to go home with him.
And she says no.
Of course.
Obviously. And this is, now he just starts saying very sexually explicit things to her that we don't know the quotes are, but I mean.
Thank the Lord.
God. And this scares her, obviously.
Yeah.
So she's like, hey, creep, I'm going to call the cops. Like, this is not going to happen. He drops his drink. He drops his cigarette.
He knocks over a drink, drops a cigarette outside the truck, tries to get her to come back and pick the cigarette up. She hollers at the boys to go to Sonic. She's calling the police. They take off running to Sonic. He takes off in the truck and crashes, and they hear him crash. And he subsequently, from that, fled the scene.
He's trying to lure her to the truck.
Yes.
And she just starts screaming for the boys and screaming for someone to call the cops. All the kids start running. She's like, I'm calling the cops, you fucking creep. Literally, she's yelling that to him.
Utter chaos down here, Tom.
So Billy Jack Lynx, stupid fucking name, too.
All these like idiots with these 3 names. My God.
My God. And he panics.
Yes.
So he drives away, crashes his car.
He's so stupid.
And leaves the scene.
Yeah. He like literally crashes his car into a telephone pole, backs up, and takes off.
So this, of course.
You sound as confused as everybody around must have been.
It's ridiculous. And of course, this makes the news.
Yes.
But this is very, very close to when Morgan went missing. It was only 2.5 months later.
Yes. Well, it makes the news, and this man comes forward saying, like, I saw the whole thing. I was at the bank across the street.
Yep.
This man had the presence of mind to be like, I should write this guy's license plate down just in case this makes the news.
But also, it was a red truck.
Yes.
Remember? Last week we told you, it's a red truck, and they're looking for one specific red truck.
Yep.
This guy who's being a fucking creep and like wants the little girl, not the little boys. Right after Morgan went missing, like this is possibly the truck that took Morgan.
And they trace the plate, and it comes back to Billy Jack Lynx. I hate this guy. I can't say his name.
I hate him so much. So the cops get a search warrant for his truck and the house.
Yeah.
And the girl, this superhero girl, this 11-year-old, was able to tell them about certain things that he had. Like, so they wanted to find these things in the house and the truck to tie it. So like his wallet that she described and his hat that she described, and they find it.
When they drove to the address, they observed a red truck sitting on the driveway with damage. Damage that for them was consistent with what had occurred in the accident, in the hit and run accident.
The truck has the exact right kind of damage for like an idiot crashing it into a telephone pole.
Almost as if it just got into an accident.
Right, exactly. Can you imagine you're trying to flee a scene and you're so discombobulated that you crash into a telephone pole?
And then you like, what an idiot. You know what? Good. I hope he had a neck injury. At the very least.
A very sore neck for him.
He was concussed.
Yeah.
Why couldn't this guy get concussed and go to sleep and never wake up again? Like, why does it, like, it never happens to these guys.
I know.
So, and the most important part, up until a few months ago, the truck had a white camper on it. Hello?
Yes.
Oh my God. So they haul his ass into custody. He's very, very cooperative, except he won't admit to anything.
All he says, he's like, I'll tell you everything that I remember, which isn't a lot because I was hammered.
Yeah, so he's like, I remember Sonic.
Yes.
I remember the kids.
Yes.
I definitely offered them money.
He remembers hitting the pole.
Yeah.
But the next thing he knows, he wakes up at home. Like, no, he remembers nothing about soliciting this girl.
There was no girl there at all.
No giving her money to come home with him. No, like, dirty, fucking, filthy, gross sex talk to this 11-year-old kid.
So anyway, this guy's arrested and convicted.
Yes.
And because it was so close to Morgan, the local...
10 miles away.
Yeah. And so close in time also. They tell the state police, they tell the FBI, they tell these other agencies because they think this guy...
is the guy.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it too, like, remember, the creepy guy that took Morgan spent the previous hour driving around yelling at kids, talking to people out the car window. This is exactly what this guy did in the exact same truck.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And the FBI guys are saying, like, just a quick reminder about kids, because all of our witnesses here are kids, right?
Yes.
You know, when you ask a kid to describe someone, if it's an old person, they can't delineate real accurately between 40 and 70. Someone is old, they're old to them. And everyone to a kid looks to be tall, so they're going to describe a person as tall.
everyone is taller than them.
Yes.
So everyone is tall.
Because the one thing that we should say about this Lynx guy is that he's old. So like if you remember, like none of the kids really were like, he was like a super old man.
No, it was like he was like a grandpa.
Yeah, they described him as like having facial hair and having hair, but like this guy's old.
Yeah.
The composites that we see don't show gray hair.
Yeah.
And when we see pictures of this Lynx guy, he's like Santa.
Yeah.
My point is just that, like, this very well could be the guy, and, like, kids are unreliable because it's hard for them to describe things.
They're a traumatized 10-year-old.
Yes.
Like, everyone we've spoken to is a traumatized 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Who either was trying to be abducted or was there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
oh my God. And so that's why Detective Brett was like, fuck the composite. I don't care. I want to know about the facts.
Because we meet Jessica, who was one of the kids that was playing with Morgan right before she was abducted, and she's like, all I really remember is that he was, quote, older, had facial hair, and the truck looked like a boxy Chevy.
Like, I couldn't believe Jessica was here.
I know.
I was like,
me
oh my
too.
God, Jessica.
I know.
And she remembers the red truck with the camper, and she remembers that it was like, it was a boxy, like the lights were square. And she goes, my family had one like it.
Exactly.
So the only reason that registered with her at all is because she was like, that kind of looks like our truck.
Yeah.
Normally, kids don't give a shit. Or nobody, like, the last time you went into a parking lot, did you even notice the car next to you?
Right. Like,
Nobody's registering any of this shit.
Yes.
But she remembered it because it kind of looked like the car, like, that she would go home in.
But it's also like she's here to say, like, my descriptions were vague because I was a kid. You know what I mean?
And it was 3 a.m. and I was really tired and scared.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
give me a break. So they really think it's this Billy Jack guy.
Yes.
Right? Now, back in 1995, his truck was actually sent to the Arkansas State Crime Lab for testing.
That's unprecedented in this case. It's never happened since that time with a vehicle. So that, for us, was a key to tell us how serious they were and how hard they were looking at this in the beginning. Where we are 25 years later is unfortunately not able to put our hands on those items.
All of the evidence they collected from his truck, which was very likely the truck that abducted Morgan, none of it can be found now.
And I'm
it's
like,
all been lost.
What is up with Arkansas and evidence? Why do they hate it so much?
I know.
Arkansas, get it together. Jesus.
Yeah. She's speaking of the West Memphis 3
yes.
case.
They hate evidence.
I know.
They don't want anyone testing it or anything. We're testing it. God damn it. But just real quick about that. There was blood on the seat, and without that seat or that blood, like, this is all useless. Like, we need, like, okay, like, we need something, and Arkansas
because they also don't have the results of the testing.
And it was like 1995 testing anyway,
exactly.
so like, what does that mean?
But then they give this guy a polygraph test, and he passes it, and they drop him as a suspect.
They're like, okay.
Must not be you.
And I'm like, what?
I know.
Now we're back to the Jacob Wetterling case, and the cops are sitting down with this creep, Danny Heinrich.
Yes.
And he's the main suspect in Jacob's case at this point because he sexually assaulted at least one young boy that we can prove so far.
Yeah.
So we're at his house, and it looks like he's secretly being filmed. Like, we can't see his entire face, but I don't think it's a secret.
Well,
I don't know if it's body cam or what.
What's crazy about this, what's hard to remember, it's like the timeline is tough because Jacob Wetterling went missing in 1989. The DNA was a match for this guy in 2016. So you're like, wait, how has he been out and free this whole time? He just has been. So like they show up out of the clear blue sky in 2016 when they were able to test that DNA off the sweater of the other victim that connected him to Heinrich, and now they're here.
Right.
And he's like, I can only imagine what is going through his head.
Let's just say he didn't clean up or prepare for this visit.
Exactly.
And they say to him, Sergeant Pam Jensen says, you're not under arrest, by the way, so you can leave whenever.
We're not leaving because we have a warrant, but you can go at any
You can
time.
absolutely, whatever you want to do. The world has been your oyster this whole fucking time.
Exactly.
So they have a warrant. Now, what they're looking for is trophies.
And child sexual abuse material.
Right.
We believed that Heinrich may have been taking things from his victim. He had kept the Cold Spring victim's underwear, and he had cut hair from one of the Paynesville kids that had been groped.
He was collecting trophies.
Yeah.
So if we can find one of these, we got the son of a bitch.
Or if we can find child sexual abuse material,
we got
can
him on
at least
that.
Yeah, exactly.
We got something, right?
Yeah.
So they don't know where Jacob is, but they know exactly what Jacob was wearing.
Right. We know what he was wearing that night.
So we're looking for something, for anything to connect this guy to Jacob. And yes, also child sexual assault images. So FBI Chris tells us about this guy's fucking house.
Because Chris is the one that he's there doing the search.
Yeah. He goes, he's a lifelong bachelor. I'm like, shocking.
I know.
Imagine going on a date with this guy.
I can't
like,
even.
Please.
I know.
So he had like samurai swords on the walls, like whatever.
Yes.
Lots of scary knives on the walls.
Yep.
And lots of videotapes. And I'm like, you better pop every last one of them into the VCR. Haven't you seen SVU? Take all of them.
They find a bins of videotapes full of child sexual assault images.
Yeah. Yeah. And so also he was very proud of being in the National Guard and his house was really neat, except his bed wasn't made. And I'm like, isn't that a big thing in the military? Like that famous commencement speech about making your bed in the morning?
I just imagine that the police pounded on his door while he was still sleeping and he threw himself out of bed.
And it was 2 PM.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
But there's another clip of the video the cops took, and this bad guy, the evil guy, says, "You guys are going to find some things that are pretty damning to me, like son of a bitch." Literally is what he says.
Exactly.
So they find these child sex abuse videos hidden in a closet. They find child sex abuse images and erotica.
Yeah.
He was cutting.
Erotica.
I know. It's not erotica. Like that's not the word.
Grossest word.
It's not the word for it. Like erotica is a real. This is not what this is. It's more child sexual abuse.
He had cut out from school yearbooks pictures of kids that boys that he had likely gone to school with, and he had pasted them on nude images of other children.
It's like so fucking sick.
Yes.
So this is the guy, right? His shoe prints match the scene. The tires match the scene.
The Wetterling scene.
It's been 27 years. So Jared is the survivor who came forward.
Yes.
And this guy can't be charged in his case because of the stupid statute of limitations.
Yeah.
But without Jared, we wouldn't be here.
No.
He's a fucking hero.
He's the connector.
So this has since come out in the podcast and everything that like the police had enough evidence to arrest this guy at the time of Jacob's disappearance and they didn't do it. Like all of this could have been solved and this guy could have gone to prison for what he did to these boys. But
why didn't they do it?
The investigation was a mess. Like more polygraph stuff. Like they just the whole story is the first season of In the Dark.
But the point is, you always got to go back to the beginning because they interviewed this guy like within the first week.
We had him.
Yeah,
we fucking had him.
And so, like, how much more damage has he done since 1989 to 2016?
Exactly.
You know.
So speaking of damage that was done, we're back with Morgan's case, and Detective Brett is like, I don't want to talk shit about the people who were working this case 25 years ago, but they really screwed up.
Right.
Like, and it's the same thing with Jacob's case, right? Like, they didn't look into things they should have. They let people go. They weren't following good leads.
Well, one of the things that we learned is that back in 1995, a neighbor reported that just 3 days after Morgan vanished, that guy, Billy Jack Lynx, poured a fresh concrete slab over his property. He's the same guy who said the best way to get rid of a body is to bury it under concrete.
So they made a decision 20 years ago not to dig on his property.
Like the neighbor reported it. We see like the police footage of them going to the property and deciding not to dig up the slab.
Ask me why.
Why?
Because he passed the fucking polygraph.
Are you serious?
We're back here again. That's why they were like, we totally believe this guy.
Oh my God.
When they know what he did to that 11-year-old girl or tried to do to her.
Yes.
But actually, what he did, because it's traumatizing. So it's like these people relied a lot on polygraph results. Holy shit. But we're digging now is the point.
Yes.
Detective Brett is here and we're digging now. And there's like a bunch of concrete slabs. They're trying to decide which one to dig under.
What we're going to learn in a minute is that the actual tip here was that he poured a concrete slab and then built a structure over it.
Yeah.
That is not what we're seeing. That is actually not true. The structure is at the foot of the concrete slab. So right away, we're kind of like, oh, okay. But as they're digging, they're realizing this is not one concrete slab. It's many. Like this guy, it seems like he was really, like, what purpose does a concrete slab serve?
And what about 7 of them?
Right.
Like what? I don't know.
Unless you're trying to cover something or whatever.
Or build like a patio, right? Like a patio or something, or build some other kind of structure.
Yeah.
But if you just have like one on top of the other,
if you build a concrete slab in the middle of your yard, doesn't it scream, don't look here?
100%.
You know what I mean?
It screams, you better look here.
Exactly.
That's what it screams to me. When it's totally out of context and doesn't make any sense. Yes.
It's also going back and forth with Morgan's mother, who's like,
it's hard to know that possibly if this is the person that we've known this for a really long time, since 2 months after Morgan was taken. I think the part that bothers me the most is that the perpetrator is deceased, which means at the end of the day, it means there's no justice.
Billy Jack Lynx is dead now. So even if they find something, they can't prosecute him. We're just looking for answers here, but this guy's fucking dead.
Jacob Wetterling's mother is going to say later, like, people always ask me, do you want justice or do you want answers? And she's like, fuck justice, I want answers.
Answers every time.
Answers every time. Every single time. So, like, it sucks that this guy is dead, and if they find the body, he won't be held accountable. But, like, can we please give this family some closure?
Right.
You know?
So, not now, no, because
not today.
nothing was found at the property.
Yeah.
But the cops are like, all right, this Billy, or the law enforcement is like, this Billy Jack guy is still a really good suspect.
Yes.
Like, we just have to reassess. We have to try a new angle. And then, as we're winding down episode 3, we get on-screen text. Investigators finally catch a break in Morgan's case. And I'm like, oh my God, for the love of God, what is it? If I'm at the edge of my seat, put yourself in her family's shoes, her mother's shoes.
I know.
So they run the VIN number on Billy Jack's truck.
The red truck that previously had the white camper on it.
It is currently registered.
It's 20, what year is it?
It's like 25 years later.
Yes.
And I'm like, what?
I know.
The owner lives 30 miles away. This is a go, go, go moment.
Yeah.
We are going.
Yeah.
Because we got to get that truck. We got to talk to the owners. We got to get it tested. Like, what's going on? But also, 3 years before Morgan's abduction.
Wife tells in court she leaves every time he gets drunk because she didn't want to be around him when she's drunk. She even flat out says, I don't even like him. But she stayed with him. She didn't divorce him after this guy rapes her own granddaughter.
After he rapes his own granddaughter, she stays with him.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't report it. Like the mother does. Like she doesn't report her own husband. And like I'm ending this episode because the mother, like he gets 10 years probation for this, but he's a known sexual assaulter and a fucking creep.
Yes.
So I'm thinking this feels pretty good. Like I think we can do this. Right? We got the VIN number on the car.
I know. Well, and what happens is we see the go, go, go moment. Like we get a very split second shot of the truck as they're driving up to it.
Because I'm like, the truck, there's no way the truck exists. The truck got destroyed decades ago, right?
Like
how does the truck even
making
exist?
a murderer times 10, you know what I mean?
How is it even here?
I know.
Don't
And
fail me now.
Episode 3 ends with I like scream. You see the truck for like a split second and then it's over.
And now episode 4 is called The Red Truck.
Yes.
Like, this is how much we're getting into the truck.
And I was like, whoa, it gets its own full episode? Okay.
Yeah. They're trying to process the red truck. They're doing tests on it for evidence.
We see the truck. Now we're like really seeing it. And you're just like, whoa. Like, we've been hearing about this. Like, I don't know. It was weird to see it.
Right. And I'm thinking, like, I'm so glad we're testing for evidence. But, like, would anything even be on there anymore after all of these years and how many owners?
And it was already processed. Remember, it was like processed back in 95.
So we learned it's going to take weeks to get the stuff, the test back from the truck. So Detective Brett, he's like, hi, I'm at 100. Like, this is it. We have this truck. Like, everything is riding on this freaking truck.
Something that we learned about the truck that's really interesting is that the Link guy only had the truck for a short time. So after his arrest for the attempted abduction of that girl at the Sonic, the truck was impounded and until recently was in the impound lot.
And I can't, like, you wouldn't just destroy it.
I mean,
it's a piece of shit truck anyway. It just got in a car accident.
But, like, thank God. So like,
I know.
Not only has it been, like, so that was 1995, the Sonic incident, and Morgan went missing in 1995. So this has been, like, in an impound lot, like, not being driven and not being, you know, like, for all this time. So I guess it's possible that evidence could still be in there.
We also meet Reuben Gay, who's because Detective Brett says,
we give it everything we got. We get the absolute best freaking people to do this because of the circumstances, because it was already processed. And to get, I mean, one freaking drop of blood or one hair that matches Morgan in this case is done.
this is now or never with this case. I have to fucking solve it.
Because
do what you have to do.
He knows that there's such a small likelihood that any evidence could still be remaining.
Right. So one of the favors, one of the best in the business is Reuben Gay. He's an FBI special agent. He started working on the case 3 years ago, but it says he has only been recently cleared to be filmed.
I know.
And I'm like, what does that mean?
What does that process?
What does that mean,
I know.
Reuben? You're
I know.
awesome.
And he's so chill, this guy.
And he's
so calm.
And he's saying what you just said, like, I can't believe I'm looking at this truck. Like, I can't believe the truck is real.
Yeah.
So we talked to the truck owner, and he bought it so that he and his grandson could work on it together. But he's like, my grandson's 3.
Yeah.
So again, it's just going to sit there, which is great for us. It's great for us. So we're pretty hopeful about this truck, right? It's just been sitting there. It's not being driven around all day. And we're going through what we know and what we don't know about the truck.
Yes.
So Billy Jack Links only had his truck for like a year or two. And you can see where a white camper could be attached to it.
Because there's like the holes in the thing where you attach the camper.
Right.
That's as much as I know about campers.
And that's it. And that's kind of all we know right now. Because right now, remember Detective Brett and his 7 locations that he's looking into? Location 7 is like the other white whale of this.
Right, because it's the last location where Morgan was seen alive.
Right. And this is where like the body of water and all the flooding.
Yep.
And so they think that maybe she was brought there because remember the teenagers saw a little girl in a truck.
Yes.
But then like maybe she was taken away by the water. Like, is that why we haven't been able to find her?
Yeah.
And then one of the dog experts says like this could explain why the dogs would react and then not find anything. Because they're hitting on something that was there and now isn't anymore.
But they're also saying if she's buried under the water, the dogs should still be able to detect her.
Right.
So like that's another form of sorcery.
Right. So they can detect her, but like that doesn't mean that she would be there if the water had taken her away.
Yeah.
So the red truck is now getting processed at the same time that we're talking about this location 7.
So they say they remove what they believe to be the original floor covering of the truck.
FBI ERT, while processing the truck, actually removed what is believed to be the original floor cover of this truck. And under that floor cover, they located a blonde hair.
They find a blonde hair.
A blonde hair.
Now remember, this truck has been in an impound for like 25 years.
Right. And then sitting in this guy's garage because he's waiting for his adorable 3-year-old grandson to grow up and hopefully have an interest in cars.
Because, oh my God, if I was his grandson, Grandpa, no thank you.
Hopefully he wants to work on this thing.
Oh no, I'd be such a disappointment to this grandpa.
This poor little tyke. I hope
no.
he's into it. So we find this hair, major news. Now we have to wait 6 months for it to be tested for Morgan's DNA.
Which we got to do better. We just got to do better.
But I guess the cops are like, it's been 25 years. What's 6 months? And I'm like, 6 months is everything.
Especially like the parents are getting older. Like it could be
So now we're back with Jacob's case.
And we hear the 911 call. Like, remember when the two kids turned around and Jacob was gone, they ran to the neighbor's house and they called 911. We hear it. And we hear the kid describing a man kind of large, wearing a nylon mask.
Wearing nylon things as a mask, he says.
How terrifying is that?
I know. And in the dark, too.
I mean, absolutely. Like, literally the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Wearing
seriously.
a black jacket. He's got a deep voice. Sounded like he maybe had a cold. It was wild to hear the 911 call.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So 26 years after Jacob was taken, the cops and the FBI show up at the piece of shit Danny house,
Heinrich,
right?
Yeah.
With an arrest warrant for child sex abuse images.
Yes.
And they also want to let him know, by the way, we're getting you on this.
Yep.
But you're also a suspect in at least 2 other abduction cases. I'm like, we're getting a lot done in this visit.
Including Wetterling. And they say
one of the goals was to present to Heinrich that he was facing federal child pornography charges, but also to let him know that he was the suspect in the Cold Spring case and Wetterling's abduction, and to plant the seed right away for him to think about is coming up with a resolution.
Like, girl, you've got information we want. So you might want to not play super hardball and maybe just give us the information.
Right.
And maybe we can work something out here.
Because he denied it in 1990.
Yes.
And he's denying it now. And FBI Chris is like, I'm good at this. I don't know what I can tell you.
Yeah.
But he goes, I can just tell he's going to crack. Like, I can feel that this guy's going to talk. And if we can just sort of manipulate the situation, maybe he'll do it.
Now, something that gets a little bit lost here is that Danny Heinrich had been on the Wetterling family's radar forever.
Right.
They've always known about this guy. So
again, the cops could have arrested him and they didn't. So this name is not a new name for them.
No. So we're with Patty. She's like, I had been on a girls' trip with a bunch of friends.
Which I love for her, by the way.
love for her too.
I
Live
love
your life, Patty.
that for her. You can do many things at once.
I hope it was a whitewater rafting trip.
Like,
you know what I mean?
I thought you were going to say a lot of white wine, which I'm supporting.
Did I tell you you're allowed to and encouraged to bring wine on the river?
That's ridiculous.
Booze of any kind. They say to you at the place where you are like pushing off, you are encouraged and you better bring your booze.
Yeah, is that before or after you sign your life away with the Ursula contract?
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be 10 pages.
It's
like,
right
I
after.
know that I'm writing. I know that I'm boozing and rafting.
Anyway, Patty gets back from her weekend with her girlfriends and someone's pounding on the door.
She's like, we're trying to figure out dinner. Like, we're just like chatting, like having a total normal night.
The worst part of every day, by the way.
I know, you hate that. Figuring out what we're eating.
Like, oh my God.
Like, I have to do that like multiple times a day.
The hardest part of marriage is what they say.
Annoying.
So it turns out, remember Jared, the one who was like the connector between the cases?
The survivor, yeah.
The survivor who's still alive. It's his attorney saying, like, here telling the Wetterlings, Heinrich might be willing to talk.
FBI Chris was right.
And again, the Wetterling family knows exactly what they're talking. They know who Heinrich is. They always suspected that he was the guy. And this is where the lawyer is saying, you might have to make a deal. You might not get what you want. This guy might not go to jail forever. Do you want him to talk? And she's like,
how many times had we been asked, do you want answers or do you want justice? I'm like, I don't care I want answers. That was my whole purpose for being.
She says, this is my whole purpose for being.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, what a powerful thing to say. Like, statute of limitations, like, whatever. I need to, that's my son.
I need to know what happened.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Answers all day.
The FBI present a plea deal to the Wetterlings, and they're like, fine, whatever. They give no resistance.
And so this guy talks.
Yes.
And the FBI goes to pick him up, and they go to where Jacob was abducted. And this guy is pointing out locations to the feds. And they're going around with a metal detector. And 27 years against all of the odds, they find Jacob's jacket.
But it's like, To me, this is so crazy because it's literally, it looks like it's on the side of the road. It's right there. And like,
we see the photos
We see the photo of the jacket plain as day. Like the red of his jacket is right there.
Among the brush and the leaves,
Yes.
it's just there.
And it's been there since 1989.
And so Patty and her husband Jerry go to the scene, and she says, I have to say, like, the cops played this really well.
Yeah.
They were all dressed like a construction crew because they didn't want the public to know what was going on.
Yep. And they had to sneak the family in because they're so well known.
Yeah, she said no uniforms, no squad cars.
Yep.
And she describes the area, and this is like, it breaks your heart.
It has like Matthew Shepard vibes.
Because she says,
It was unbelievably peaceful. There's cows in the pasture. There's this grove of trees. It's really pretty. And I thought, if this is where he is, he was at peace.
if this is where he is, he's at peace.
Yes.
So here's what the killer says, and it's everyone's worst. It's like what keeps you up at night.
Yeah.
Because we were thinking, like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
Is he looking? Does he see an opportunity? Like, how does this happen? And he says, I was on the hunt.
Yep.
He had no reason to be in that location. He was looking for a way to do horrible things. He says, I was looking for a boy.
I mean.
And also, why is Patty telling us this?
I know.
How could she possibly tell the story again and get these words out and say them out loud? Can we get FBI Chris back in here to tell it?
She barely does.
Like, it's not fair for, maybe she wanted to do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking for
you know
Patty.
what? Maybe you're right.
Maybe she did. But
Yeah.
whenever I see this, I can't help but think, could someone else have done this? Or maybe, again, it's her story. She should tell it.
Yeah. And, again, he says he was looking for a boy. He saw the kids riding to the store, waited for them to come back. He took Jacob to the car and handcuffed him. And Jacob says, what did I do wrong? He thinks that this guy's like law enforcement and that he's like in trouble.
Yeah. And everything that Trevor, the brother, said in the front, that was all completely accurate.
Yes.
These kids, their statements were totally true because the killer is confirming it.
Yes, yes. So he drives him onto the interstate, drives 10 miles to Plainville.
They go to a gravel pit and, Patty says that he molested Jacob, and Patty says they were not given a lot of details about that, but they were told that he didn't penetrate Jacob. So Patty explains as the sheriff is like telling them all of this.
At this point, my entire family is sobbing. And it's like, Sheriff, stop. Just stop. Let us breathe for a minute. And so he did. He was very monotone. I'm sure it was hard for him.
She acknowledges it must have been horrible for the sheriff to have to tell her.
She said he was doing it monotone. Like, this is the worst situation for everyone. But she's like, hold on a second.
Everyone's sobbing.
We need to stop. Like, we need to breathe. This is like way too much to take.
Because it's the kind of thing where like all she's ever wanted is answers, and here they are. And now it's like, do you really want to know?
Of course, like you do, but no one. It's a surreal moment because answers means that the worst has, like Colleen.
Now, because when you're thinking the worst, you're thinking it couldn't have been that bad. And now you're going to know exactly what happened.
Right. And I am happy that they spared details
Yes.
and told them he
Yes.
did not penetrate Jacob and everything. So Jacob this is really, I'm sorry, everyone, but I want to give honor to Jacob and what happened. So Jacob was cold, so he put his jacket on and he wanted to go home. And the killer said, I can't do that. And then the killer told Jacob to turn around. The killer says, I have to pee, so turn around. I don't want you to see it. And that is when the killer shot Jacob twice. So the killer buries Jacob
in the gravel pit right there.
And his red jacket.
Yeah.
And this guy went to the spot every day. And then a year later, he realizes that the jacket is like coming out of the ground.
It's like being pushed up by the undergrowth.
Yeah. And so he takes Jacob, he buries Jacob.
He exhumes Jacob from there and takes him across the street to the pasture.
And this is where the feds are.
Yeah.
But when they get there, the jacket had risen up again.
Again.
And Patty, his mom, says,
when they went to where he said Jacob was, they found the jacket. It had risen up again. It's like Jacob wanted to be found. He led us there.
He led us there.
Yes.
So, and it's so like, they keep using the word and I keep thinking it's horrific, but it really is. Like, there's no other word for this. I keep thinking it, they keep saying it, but like there's nothing else to say about this.
It's just like he's just a kid, you know what I mean? He's just a kid, and it's like this shit's really starting to get to me.
It's really hard.
Like
it's
the
really
kid stuff
hard.
is like, whenever anybody asks like, is there stuff you can't do? And I'm like, The kid stuff is the hardest.
It's
and like
hard.
as Daisy gets older, it gets harder.
Yeah.
You know?
So the killer pled guilty to one count of what they call child pornography, but sexual assault.
It just
images.
makes me crazy. Like this is the plea deal. Like I'll show you where he is and I'll tell you what happened, but I'm going to plead to like the lowest thing you could possibly get me on.
And the remaining 24 counts were dismissed. So that's one count, but he's sentenced to 20 years.
I mean, for one count of what they're calling child pornography, you should get 10 lifetimes. They should find your reincarnated person and put that fucking person in jail.
Yeah. 100%. So he's sentenced to 20 years. He's going to be 70 at the time of his release in 2033. And I'm like, explain to me why the Menendez brothers are still like, this guy is a danger to society.
Yep.
We know he's a danger to society.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. Like, you're telling me this guy's going to be out in 10 years from now? Less than that?
I was thinking like prison 70 is not normal 70. Like it's not going to go well for him.
Yeah.
You know, I know. It's
no, and it won't go well for him in prison.
No.
So who knows?
So now we're with Colleen. And remember, Colleen, who's Morgan's mom, and Patty are really good friends. And we learned that Patty, her one request to the cops was don't let Colleen find out about this on the news.
Yes.
So the police call the police and the police chief comes to see Colleen and he tells her. And what's so devastating for Colleen is she says, finding Jacob's body was the lowest moment of hope she had for Morgan, because she and Patty were in this club of like, it is possible. They could still be out there.
Right. And like Jacob's family fought so hard. And in the end, they had to make a deal with the killer to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and he got off easy.
Yeah.
So it wasn't because of like, he admitted it. He came to them. He talked. And so they had to give up so much to get this. And that is something that she also just cannot handle. So Colleen is trying to stay realistic about the truck because remember, we're waiting for the test to come back and she's been so disappointed before. And she's just saying like, I know this news about Jacob is devastating to her, but she can't give up. She's not going to give up.
Yeah.
And she's telling us this when she's sitting by an outdoor fire pit.
Yeah.
And her dog is next to her. And let me tell you, this dog loves her. This dog is too big to be a lap dog, but cannot be any closer to her. Like keeps looking up at her, just loves her. And I think it's so, that has to be helpful to have this
100%.
loving creature look up at you with like, you're the most perfect being on earth to this dog. And like can't get any, like leaning up against her legs and she like will pet him telling the story. And watching that was just like, I love that she has that, you know, because we've spent so much time with her. That's so painful.
Yes.
And she's sitting in this beautiful space with this fire pit and it feels just a little bit peaceful, just the tiniest little bit.
Yes. And I think that Colleen finds moments of peace in her day. You know what I mean?
I think so. She has, you know, and we're talking to her about the worst thing that ever happened. So, you know, but you guys, the results are back.
Yeah. And like the first round of results are in.
When it was tested, we could say that blood was indicated. So we have two tests. And unfortunately, when we tried to do the DNA test, when we tried to determine how much DNA was there, it came back as there was no DNA there.
There's not enough of the blood for them to be able to get DNA from it.
And we don't even know if Morgan was bleeding. Like,
That's
we don't
the
know
biggest
that.
thing. Right.
And so her DNA might not even be there.
Yep.
And it's been 25 years.
Yep.
Like, even though that truck has just been sitting there, you're talking about like weather and what, like, the DNA is just going to start to break down if it's not preserved in a certain way, right?
Yes.
Like the heat and the sunlight, like DNA in any kind of vehicle is risky and difficult, what we learned. And so now, like, okay, great, it hasn't been driven around, but it's just sort of like
25
wasting
years.
away.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not being preserved properly,
Yes.
right? So now we're waiting on the trace evidence report.
Which includes the blonde hair. That's going to be the big next thing.
Right. Now, while we wait for that, which is like, oh my God.
I know.
We're back to, remember Charles Ray Vine, one of their other suspects?
He was like the serial killer in the beginning that had like so many, like the dogs hit on so many spots on his property that I was afraid they were going to find 20 bodies.
Right. And he's never been clear. Like, he's always been a suspect.
Yeah.
So we're back at the property.
And he also is dead. He died in prison just as they were going to go question him.
Right. So, like, we're back on his property. We got more dogs. FBI Rubin is like, we have to go where the evidence leads us. And we have two leads right now. Billy Jack Links and Charles Ray Vines. We don't want to waste any time or momentum. What if this is a nothing burger with the car? What if we have to go back? Like, if we have to wait for 6 months, let's look at the other lead. Like, let's just try everything.
Absolutely.
So they finally get the report back on the hair, and it's a fucking nothing burger again.
Because it's inconclusive, which they're trying to spin as like, well, it's not her.
They're like, it can basically go either way. Like, there is no either way.
Because there's nothing else to test.
Like,
you know what I mean? So, like, we'll never know.
Like, the FBI is choosing to think this is good news, but no, girl. Like,
because it'd be one thing if it was like, well, then we'll retest it and try, but it can't be tested. There's not enough. It's too degraded.
Right. And so as we're waiting for like this one last report from the lab, we learn more about the different types of child predators, just like nightmare fuel. So there are groomers, like honestly, there are groomers, which is like someone you know.
Like the Quiet on the Set guys. Like Brian Peck is a groomer.
Or like Billy Jack who molested his own granddaughter. Like that, it's the people in your family, the people you know, those are the groomers. And the abductors are the people trolling neighborhoods looking for victims like that Danny asshole. So we learn also that there's a 2% chance that Morgan is alive. Because 98% of the kids who are missing for more than 2 years, when they are found, it's remains that we're finding.
We had a long talk about this off mic. This is what Colleen is clinging to.
Yeah.
She's like,
2% do survive. That means that until someone can prove that Morgan didn't survive, the possibility remains that she survived.
The 2% is what is keeping her going. But she has to hang on to that 2%.
What I was saying about this that's so sad is it's not like they're never found. They always are the ones that like JC Dugard or whatever, like they break free from their captor or whatever. It's never the police work that finds them, it feels like.
And JC was 18 years.
Yeah.
So, but she's holding on to that because she's thinking.
Yep.
And I don't blame her.
Of course.
Obviously, like
of course.
What is going to get you out of bed in the morning to take care of your kids and yourself and be a part of this world? What is going to do it? If it's that 2%, then hold on to it.
Like I was saying, she has found peace. Like she's on a mission. This mission is part of her life. I love her. I want her to have whatever she needs to get through the day.
Yeah. And you know what? That's like those relationships, like her friendship with Patty is invaluable because like they just keep saying, you don't get it unless you're in it. And we're in it. And they can go to the diner and have coffee and say things to each other that you can't say to anybody else and be seen and heard in this like super valuable way.
Totally.
So we get the final report back and it's the fibers from the floor mat and other pieces of the truck. And the lab gave a replica of Morgan's Girl Scout shirt that she was wearing.
Yes.
So like the same size, they call it the same make and model. And they're using it to test it against whatever was found in the truck.
Yes.
And the report comes back and says it's a match.
Yeah.
And says that the fibers that they found matched the Girl Scout shirt that Morgan was wearing.
Like 100%.
Like 100%. And those fibers wouldn't match a random shirt. It had to be the same one. And I'm like, so you're saying that Billy Jack Lynx did it, right? Like, I mean, that's what that means?
It's the only good news we have, which is like some concrete information that like these fibers are a direct match.
The fibers match. There was a red truck.
Yeah.
The witnesses are saying he's wearing glasses. This guy wore glasses. The square lights on the truck. Like,
and we also know that truck's been impounded for 25 years. It's not like there's been a bunch of Girl Scouts riding around in the cab of the truck.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's a guy for his 3-year-old son. There are no other Girl Scouts around.
Yeah.
So, but as Detective Brett says,
I feel very strong that it's probably actually him. I'll be honest with you, at the moment, I don't want it to be him because we're fucked if it is.
We're fucked if it's this guy. Because he's dead.
Right.
And he can't be tried, and he can't be spoken to or asked about anything.
Well, and what he means by that is we'll never know for sure, because he's the only person who could really confirm it.
Right. Or you get a warrant for DNA from him or whatever, and his stupid fucking wife is protecting him still.
Yeah.
Idiot. And basically, it just ends with, like, we think it's Billy Jack Lynx. And if you happen to know anything about it, please give us a call. So he's now an official person of interest for the FBI, which came out kind of recently, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
So if you know, dear listener, get a pen and write this down.
Yes.
1-800-225-5324 is if you know anything about Billy Jack. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, their number is 1-800-843-5678.
Oh, girl, we did Still Missing Morgan.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oof, this is rough.
It was really rough. I mean, I will be thinking about Colleen every day for the rest of my life.
I know. It's really, well, I have a nice break for everybody coming up
what
next.
are we doing next?
We're doing Brandy Hellville, the cult of fast fashion.
Oh!
So it's still like, we have a lot of work to do as human beings and as a society, but we are taking a break from the horrible things that people are doing to children, honestly.
I was going to say, are you going to tell me I can't shop at Old Navy for Daisy anymore?
Old Navy, you can't. We like throw a lot of clothes away.
I know.
It's like destroying the environment.
Though. though.
Yeah. We'll learn things that are like kind of scary about it'll really make you think about where you buy your clothes from. And also the leader of this is like a racist asshole, so we get to make fun of him. But we get to make fun of him.
All right, good.
And there are like women telling their story. So it is, it's not the best story we've ever told on the show, but it is not another Still Missing Morgan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just,
100%.
Yeah, and this is very highly requested. So
just one quick thing before we go, fam. We are in the middle of our coverage of the Jinx season 2 on Patreon. So
are we ever?
If you want some entertainment for your life, please join us over in the Patreon. Patreon.com/truecrimeobsessed, or just go to our website, click on the Patreon link. It is a wild, bonkers banana ride.
It is wild. And Jarecki, DMs are open, you know?
Jarecki, get in touch, girl.
Let's talk.
Yes.
I might have notes, but generally...
I know, but generally we want to meet you.
We just want to have a conversation. No big deal.
All right, so stay tuned for the trailer for the Culty Clothes one.
Yeah, Brandy Hellville. I didn't know anything about that. I think I'm not cool or young enough to know about it, but I had never heard about the brand. So.
All right, great.
I learned a lot.
And maybe funny and hilarious outtakes if we got them.
I mean, fingers crossed. I highly doubt it.
Can you play us out with the Tony Soprano singing that song again?
I don't want to do your dirty work no more.
It's so good. That's such a gift. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, James Gandalf.
I know. All right, bye.
Bye.
There are these text messages between the senior leadership at Brandy Melville, the most vile, sexual, racist jokes possible.
When I saw him wearing a Hitler outfit, I wasn't surprised.
Store-style photos were taken every day. Go stand against that wall and pose so I can text it to the founder of the company.
Brandy Melville was part of fast fashion, and how fast fashion was impacting our environment.
Everywhere you walk, this fabric is going to shock you. What you see entering our workplace, I need to be worried.
We're all being exploited by the theme system.
Fast fashion brands convince you to buy so much because they convince you that you are not enough.
Brandy Melville taps into the worst impulses of being a teenage girl.
Finally, someone's talking about it.
How am I not allowed to have a single glass of wine in Central Park with my husband, but I'm supposed to take vodka on the Colorado River?
Who says you can't drink in the park?
That's illegal. People do it, but I'm saying
that's illegal. Lock me up.
I know, but it is.
Too bad.
How is it not illegal to take
that
a fucking can of vodka? And yes, I'll drink vodka out of a can on the Colorado River with 150 gays.
You're putting your life in your hands, big time.
I know.
Really putting your life in your hands.
I live to tell the tale. Anyway.